Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Catholic Talk Show. Today, we're going to be talking about Jesus' relics.
That's right. We're going to look at some of the lesser-known relics associated with the life of Christ, where they're at, their historical significance, and so much more.
Relics truly do bless the history of the Catholic Church, without a doubt. But these relics that we're going to share with you today reveals many, many miracles associated with them from the beginning of the Church till today.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I was looking at some of the show notes here, and I see some things I've never seen before, like a holy diaper.
A holy diaper. We're going to get into the holy diaper. So don't give away what you're too early in the episode, but the holy diaper's coming up. I'll just say that much.
And so you do want to stick around.
Yeah.
You know, if you're watching on YouTube or if you're connecting with us on our audio platforms, you're going to want to hit a thumbs up, especially when it comes to the holy diaper, because it's going to blow your mind.
So we've done episodes on some of the better-known relics of Christ, right? Things like the true cross, or things like the Shroud of Turin.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to be talking about those ones because those ones really would take a whole episode to get into
and they're
them.
a standalone relic that
Right.
has so much culture and so much central thought and devotion around these realities. But the ones that we have today, you may have heard of some of these relics. You may have even venerated some of these relics. And if you have, and if you've seen them, we want to know that in the comments section below. So make sure that you're commenting and sharing your testimonies to build and edify the faith of all of our followers, because we do have a really cool family with the Catholic Talk Show here.
Yeah. So the first one that we want to talk about today, and this one captured my imagination about 10 years ago or so. And it's something that only gets displayed on a kind of periodic interval. And that is the robe of Jesus, the actual clothes that he wore. And to see something like that was really mind-blowing. So this is called the seamless robe. So if you remember in Scripture, where the Roman soldiers are casting lots. They're playing dice because Jesus was wearing a pretty nice robe, right? It was a robe made out of one piece of cloth, which is pretty rare because back in the day, I mean, your clothes were held together with, stitches and hope, right?
Yeah.
But this is the actual robe, according to tradition, that Our Lady made for Jesus, that Jesus wore throughout his life, his under tunic. And this is in Trier, Germany. So we'll put pictures of all of these up. So if you're listening to the podcast, you might want to watch this later to see the actual pictures. But this is in the Basilica in Trier, Germany. And just looking at that robe there, the ancientness of it and the size of it and the cut of it, it really just, it fascinates the imagination.
And you think of the research done by Mel Gibson for The Passion of the Christ.
Yeah.
You see that's the robe that was in The Passion of the Christ. And this is hit pop culture too, like the movie The Robe, that film back in 1953. I still remember watching that with my grandfather. But, there is a long-standing tradition and reverence due to this particular relic associated with Jesus. This was fabric that touched the mystical body of Jesus Christ, our Savior, the only begotten Son of God. God incarnate wore this seamless robe.
So according to tradition, this was found by St. Helena. So St. Helena was the mother of Constantine, and she's the patroness of all archaeologists.
Mm-hmm. And really sourced so many relics related to Jesus beyond the ones that we're going to be sharing with you here on this show today, because we probably need to do just an episode on St. Helen alone.
That's right. So St. Helena, she was sent by Constantine, her son, the Roman emperor, right? Kind of big deal, right? And she's a Christian. So he's like, go ahead, Mom. I'm going to give you a trip to Jerusalem. He's probably looking to have a house party, needing her out of the house. Emperors are.
Here's a ton of money. Just go do whatever you want.
Mom, no, seriously, no.
Here's a credit card.
Mom, I'll order pizzas. We'll be fine. Not a big deal. We're not going to have any parties. You go with your friends. I hear Maximus's mom wants to go for a trip. Why don't you go to Jerusalem? Anyway, so he commissions St. Helena to go to Jerusalem to find specifically to find these holy sites, right? And she found during this trip the site of the crucifixion, the site of the birth. She went and interviewed all of the locals, because the locals preserved all of these traditions, saying, well, yeah, we all know that it was there. See underneath that building right there? It's there, but the old Romans built the Temple of Venus on top of it because they wanted to get rid of us from worshiping there, but we all know it's under there. So that's why she's like an investigative archaeologist. But she found this robe in 325 along with the Holy Cross and sent it up to Trier in Germany, where it's still to this day. Now, one of the things is that you can't do carbon dating on this, which is unfortunate, because in the 19th century, they dipped the whole thing in rubber to preserve it because, like the threads were getting frayed and everything.
Oh, my goodness.
Which, a lot of times with
Rubber? Brilliant. Rubber? It bounces like a ball.
That was the technology at the time. They would, a lot of things like in ancient artwork is preserved in really whack ways, right?
Yeah.
And that was one of them. So there's not really been any good dating on this, but records of it go back to the 1200s, right, or earlier. So
Wow.
So that's that the actual robe of Jesus. But then thinking about it, that Jesus, this is what the Romans were playing for. Like they didn't value God made man on the cross right next to them. They valued this piece of cloth, which I think is a real reflection on just how easily we can overlook the true, the things that are really valuable in our life that are right next to us.
Yeah. And, you mentioned the Holy Cross, too. And I think it's a great segue to look at this next relic associated with Jesus. And, incorrectly, Martin Luther said that one could build a whole house using all of the parts of the true cross scattered around the world. And he said that very irreverently, kind of criticizing the reliquaries of the church as it relates to the reverence to the Holy Cross. But, according to the research carried out associated with the reliquaries that hold this great relic associated with Jesus, the Holy Cross, done in the 19th century, the known fragments of the Holy Cross amount to less than 1/9 of its original volume. And the history of the cross goes all the way back to where St. Helena discovered this with the robe and secured one of the most important relics to Christendom, and that is the instrument of our salvation, the very throne that Christ mounted and won our salvation by his self-offering and self-denial.
Yeah, according to tradition, there was 3 crosses there, and St. Helena needed to find out which is the true cross. So she found a person who was terminally ill just among the population of Jerusalem and had them lay down on each of the 3 crosses. And when he laid down on the true cross, he was miraculously healed, and they knew that was the true cross. So we do still have slivers of the true cross. There's some in a lot of churches, but unfortunately, the majority of it, the largest piece of it, was lost in 1187 in the Battle of Hattin to Saladin. So the Crusaders would hold that aloft ahead of them before going into battle. And they did that at the Horns of Hattin against Saladin, and they lost the battle. And the last recording of it in history, and this breaks my heart to say, the last time it's ever mentioned in any document is that it was last seen being dragged behind the horse through the city of Damascus. They tied it to the horse and dragged it around to mock the Christians and their victory over them. That hurts.
That does. That's painful.
Yeah. I'd like to believe it's still out there somewhere waiting to be rediscovered, maybe a new St. Helena, but, again, these are not magical items. They are not our salvation themselves, but they are, because of their association with Christ, very, very holy, but, they're not. Our salvation is not the wood. Our salvation is the God-made man who hung on it.
Yeah, and clearly, the irreverence and the sacrilegious action that is to the Catholic sensibility, the value of that cross in the city of Damascus was viewed upon by people that are believers and respect that cross. So you better believe that human beings in the line of faith saw that cross, and who knows, it may be somewhere hidden in some underground place in Damascus,
That
somewhere
sounds like a good
outside
book.
of the city of Damascus.
Yeah, because you always hear these stories of like, oh, this person was executed, this saint was martyred, and then they'd throw their body in the river or burn them or whatever. But then after everyone left, someone knew, and they were waiting for a moment they'd come and get it. And
Exactly.
I would like to believe that
Exactly.
happened too,
Yeah.
and that there's
and then hid it because it was just such turmoil in the area.
and hopefully there's some secret order who's been protecting the true cross for the last 800 years. And if there is,
We
all
wanna
I'm
be a
saying-
part of it.
Well,
Just-
if there is, I won't tell anyone. But if a letter shows up at my house and asks me to join, I'm down.
I'm down too.
You know, no. Which now I'm going to be looking for that letter. Greg.
Did it come? Did it come?
So the cross is part of a larger group of relics known as the Arma Christi, and I love this. It's the weapons of Christ, and those are all the relics associated with the crucifixion.
And his torture.
Is torture, trial, arrest, and crucifixion. They're the weapons of Christ. Now you'd think because these are the weapons that were used against Christ to execute him.
But in the tradition of statuary and the expression of the victory of Christ in his resurrection, you know, there's like St. Paul, for example, he was beheaded. So in statuary and artistic expressions, he's holding the sword in his hand in the form of victory over the sword.
But these are called the weapons of Christ, not because they were used against Jesus, but because these were the things that he used to defeat death and Satan. You know, so he took the very implements that he was tortured with and used them to defeat Satan. So some of the things that are included in the Arma Christi, or the weapons of Christ, are the true cross, like we just mentioned. The crown of thorns, which, I mean, we all know where the crown of thorns is. It's in Notre Dame. And there was the fire there a few years ago. And it was a big thing to get the crown of thorns out because that was the most sacred relic there. There's the column where he was whipped. There's the holy sponge that was dipped in the vinegar. The nails. So a lot of tradition around the nails. Like one was in the crown of Constantine. Like he took one of the nails.
And then one of the outstanding images too, the lance that you could see in the image that you pulled up before, is, you know, the lance is also a part of the reliquary of the church.
Yeah, that's the lance of Longinus that
Yep. Pierce the side. Yeah.
You know, I watched the newest Indiana Jones, and Indiana Jones is like 80 years old now. It's time to hang up the whip, bro. But I remember years and years ago they're saying, okay, we're going to release a new Indiana Jones, and it was going to be called the Spear of Destiny, because you had the Holy Grail, you had the Ark of the Covenant, and they were all very Christian relic oriented. And then this new movie, if you haven't seen it and you want to watch it, pause this or fast forward. I'm going to give spoilers. And that was always going to be the next chapter, was the Lance of Destiny, because the tradition is whoever owns this lance is going to be the most exalted king, the leader of the world. So then Indiana Jones is fighting the Nazis to get the lance. And they open it up and they're like, this is a fake. It has no real power. This is worthless. What we're really after is the dial of destiny and science. I'm like, this is stupid.
This is
dude.
where you take such great novel writing and great literature and then just manipulate it.
Come on, man. You took Indiana Jones, you turned him into not cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I was
terrible.
watching that, I'm like, this is stupid.
Wow.
So they took the idea, because Indiana Jones, the property got sold to Disney, I think. They took the idea.
There you go.
Turned it from finding the spear of Christ and beating the Nazis to, we need to find the scientific thing that is a computer from ancient Greece. Ah, dude, come on. Anyway,
Shame.
you have the Veil of Veronica.
Yeah. I have a huge devotion to the Veil of Veronica and a huge devotion to Saint Veronica, the face of Christ.
Some of the other ones are the reed, the robe, and the crown of thorns. Those are all the things that he was dressed up like by the Romans. You have the Titulus Crucis. Which,
Oh, dude, the dice.
The dice. I don't know about the dice. What are the dice? Oh, the
dice that the soldiers
lots.
cast lots for. Like, that's crazy. Where is that one at?
I don't know.
I'd love to know where.
There's also the rooster that crowed after Peter's third denial, and it's like, okay, so you got a rooster now? Like, is it a bunch of bones or something?
Chicken?
Yeah.
It's like a McDonald's hamburger that never rots.
Good day.
The ladder used for the disposition. So the ladder that they climbed up to
The
take him down.
deposition.
Yeah, the deposition. The ropes used to raising the cross. The hammer. The pincers used to remove the nails. The vessel of myrrh used to anoint him. The shroud, which obviously. The sun and the moon, considered a relic of the Arma Christi because of the eclipse that happened at the third hour. That's interesting.
That's considered a relic?
I guess so, according to this list.
Huh.
The chains that he was held in overnight, the lanterns and the torches that the arresting soldiers carried, the sword that Peter used to cut off, the servant's ear, even the trumpet played to mock Christ on the way to Calvary. So those are all the instruments, right? So some of the lesser known relics. So a lot of those exist, a lot of those don't. But that's like an accounting of all the things that would be included in the Arma Christi.
Yeah, so these aren't necessarily something that's been preserved throughout history, but something
A lot
that
of them
can
have.
consider. Yeah.
A lot of them have. I mean, we could go through all of these, but then
Yeah.
the show would be 64 hours long, and you guys would stop watching.
Wow. I'm sitting there thinking about, like the trumpet, the horns playing in mockery of Jesus as he begins the Via Crucis, and it's such an irreverent action of just and we talk about it all the time. We just see such irreverence with certain things that we experience online or whatever. But you think about Christ coming back triumphantly to judge the living and the dead, and the angels piping like the true trumpeteers of like the authority of Christ's kingdom. Like that's gonna be like next level.
That's good. It's going to be next level. Yeah.
It's crazy. But something that I remember for as it relates to reverencing some of these relics that we're discussing, there are many of these relics scattered throughout Rome, but the one in particular that stands out the most as a place that I've gone many times and have incredible experiences praying with pilgrims over the past 10 years, no, more 20 years of ministry and 10 years of priesthood, is the Scala Santa. I mean, the holy stairs where you, by tradition, climb up on your knees on the very staircase that led to Christ's condemnation.
Yeah, those were the stairs that led. That's the stairs that he would have had to walk up to Pontius Pilate.
Pontius Pilate.
And you've done those?
Yeah, a number of times.
Where are those at?
And it's right across the street from St. John Lateran. So on the Lateran Hill, right across from the entry of St. John's, you just cross the street, and
that's where he was condemned in real life, or was that just moved there?
It was moved.
Yeah.
So when we go on this Holy Land trip in January of this year, like we're going to be able to see the Praetorium and where Jesus was condemned. Wow. So those stairs were transported from that location, to where they are now.
That's crazy. And for people who would doubt that actually those kind of things happened in the ancient world, that Helena would have went there and actually brought all this stuff back to Rome. That was actually really, really common.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the most common things that would happen is that, you're basically, I mean, it's the same reason that the Babylonians carted off the Ark of the Covenant, or the same reason that the Assyrians would kill the Apis bull in Egypt, or the Romans would bring back, an obelisk.
And it's like, the sensibilities that we have, we're so jacked up. I mean, like our generations are so messed up because look at how often we're renovating, and the building materials that we use is not great.
Yeah.
It's like these building materials are falling apart left and right, but that's not the way that the ancients built. That's not the way that our forefathers built. Heck, they built better in the early 20th century than they do right now. You look at some of these houses up north, like, they built them to last multi-generations. Like, they want their patrimony to be established in land, property, and houses. Well, we've been manipulated because it's like we're building at such a fast pace with quick material that needs to be replaced. replaced. That's not the mentality here. Like all this stuff was meant to last and stay suited in patrimony to be passed down.
So those are kind of all ones associated with his passion. But I think the ones that are maybe more peaceful to consider are the ones associated with his nativity. And we are going to have the chance when we're on our pilgrimage, we're going to be going to the Church of the Nativity, and we're going to venerate the very spot that the incarnation happened, where our Lord was laid, in swaddling clothes in a manger, right? And there's a big silver star there. So that's going to be an amazing opportunity. But like I said, there was a manger and swaddling clothes.
What would be the swaddling clothes? Like, that's the question of all questions for this episode.
The swaddling clothes is
a
also
binky.
it's also known as the holy diaper.
That is the holy diaper.
So now we have to go into etymology about what a diaper really is.
Ryan, you have 7 kids. I imagine you know what a diaper is at this point, unless Jen just took care of all of that.
But swaddling clothes are different than a diaper as such. You're wrapping the kid up.
You couldn't run into Carter's in the first century and just get swaddling clothes and onesies, dude. They just didn't have them.
Dang, man, for real? What did they do?
They washed them in the river. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you think Joseph changed diapers? He had to have.
Joseph was very hands-on type of a father.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So we got some swaddling clothes.
So,
not
swaddling
necessarily a diaper, but swaddling clothes.
They're called the holy diaper, but it's the clothes that Jesus was swaddled, and that's in the reliquary treasury of the Dubrovnik Cathedral. Dubrovnik.
It's a beautiful cathedral.
It is
It's
gorgeous.
Croatia.
Yeah.
That city is beautiful. One of the most beautiful places you'll ever go in your life.
Yep.
Highly recommend it. St. Blaise's relics are there too. And at a beautiful church. The city's amazing. The people are great. The food's awesome. The views are great. This is like a Roman fortified city. And it was also, some of the sites where Game of Thrones was shot too.
Yeah.
It is breathtaking.
Yeah. So the holy diaper, it was originally in Aachen Cathedral, which is where Charlemagne was at. Mm-hmm. Then it moved over to Dubrovnik in Croatia. But I don't think you've ever thought of a diaper being holy before, but there you go.
I've never thought of a diaper being holy.
I've seen some unholy ones for sure.
We're on our last child, God willing, and so like I'm looking at it going, you're my last one. As soon as I potty train you, I'm never going to change a diaper again.
Well,
never.
Let's just say
and then
that
grandchildren galore.
Let's just say that on average, each of your 7 kids, let's say 2 of them become priests or nuns, at least 5, and they're going to have half the amount of kids you have. So 3 to 4, we're looking at 20 crap factories
descending
coming to your
upon the
house.
Delacroix house all at once.
I can't escape it.
You're
and
never
then
going to escape it.
The poop production of the Delacroix clan at that point is going to be massive. So they're going to need extra hands, granddad.
Yeah. Nobody wants our diapers.
They're going to end up in the Dubrovnik reliquary dump. But then also, okay, well, now our Lord's, in the swaddling clothes. So he's also going to be laid into that manger that was on that silver star. Mm-hmm. And that the manger still exists to this day as well, that's going to be in the Church of Jerusalem in Rome.
Yeah.
Which is, basically it was St. Helena's personal chapel. Mm-hmm. And that's where
that's where a greater majority of those relics are. If you want to venerate and go to the church, it's at that.
Are we going there at all or no?
Well, that's in Rome. So
it's in Rome, sorry.
So we're
for
not
the Jubilee
in 25. We're probably going to go there, but it's not confirmed yet. But it's cool. That church was actually built on soil excavated from Jerusalem. That's why it's Jerusalem in Rome.
That's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Some other pretty cool relics associated with Jesus. So Jesus ascended into heaven. Mary was assumed. He ascended in heaven. So there's he's not here physically anymore. But logic would dictate that parts of him would have been left behind because, I mean, that's what happens with a normal human body, right? So according to tradition, there's things that would have been left behind, like his baby teeth, right? So there'll be churches that will have some of Jesus' baby teeth.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Right? I mean, it happens. If his beard hairs or his hair, I mean, he's going to get haircuts, he's going to get beard trims, I would imagine, right? So there's traditions that there's hair and beard hair of Jesus. There's the blood of Christ shed during the crucifixion. There's relics of that in churches. We've talked about this on another episode, and we didn't get excommunicated, so I feel like I don't think it's going to happen at this point. But there's also the holy prepuce.
Yes,
We know exactly what that
let's
is.
move on.
To be clear, that's the foreskin of Jesus.
Oh, thanks.
And if you want to hear more about it, just click this video right here.
When I said move on, I didn't mean that.
So anyway, the holy prepuce is the foreskin of Jesus, and there was multiple.
He just loves talking about this.
There's multiple churches that claim to have that. There's multiple female saints throughout the Middle Ages who would have ecstatic visions where that the foreskin of Jesus would be their wedding ring. That was a pretty common vision of holy women throughout the Middle Ages.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
There's
What else you got?
You
There's
do
also-
take personal pleasure. He does.
We got a
Takes
bunch of-
personal
I like
pleasure.
watching
you
you
know,
guys
like-
squirm.
Mercy.
The holy umbilical cord.
He's got this smile on his face right now.
Is currently in
he
the
likes torturing us.
the Archbasilica of St. John Lateran. So St. John Lateran has a section of the holy umbilical cord.
That's pretty cool. Like
Catholicism is weird.
if
dude.
you're into that kind of stuff.
Catholicism, can we just all admit that the church is a weird place? It's okay.
Especially when it comes to
and
relics.
you love it.
It's cool.
I'm very proud
it
of
is
the
cool.
weirdness of our faith.
Let's keep Catholicism weird.
Keep Catholicism
Right?
weird. I like it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know,
it takes all, like we're all like one body, right? So you always have that guy who's like, hey, let's get his umbilical cord.
unbiblical
You
cord.
know, like, hey.
his unbiblical cord.
You know? He's that guy. You know, you got
He's
Helena
that
looking
guy.
for the cross and everything, right? And then you got that guy who's just like, hey,
Mortimer.
I got the foreskin. And everybody's like, okay. What are you going to do with it? I don't know.
I mean, there's a nun. She's
She
looking for a
said she'd
ring.
take it, you know?
One of my favorite stories.
Stop, Ryan.
no, okay, this
He's
one.
already just continuing.
This one's not
Once you get
meant,
him
this
on a
one's
roll,
not
you
meant
just can't
to make
stop
you guys
the man.
cringe, but I enjoy it.
We all know you enjoy it. For the people who are listening in, you might want to watch this one because his face he really enjoys
You're
this
not
stuff.
you're not going to go to the third
In a weird way.
Presbyterian
He's that
First
guy.
Church, right? Of Main Street and find this stuff. You're
Dude,
not.
No.
Deli, he's the guy. This is the guy.
He's the guy who's like, dude,
We should do
umbilical
this
cord,
right now.
So weird. I love it. Yeah.
I love it.
I'm going to go talk to a nun and be like, hey,
Do you think you're going to be a religious? You are loved.
All right, so here's one last really weird thing I think is really interesting. We talked about the crown of thorns earlier and how it was saved from the fire of Notre Dame. But that one has a long, long history, going all the way back 4th, 5th century. They've always kind of know where this is at. But I really like the interesting and weird fact that the crown of thorns was actually pawned by the emperor of Constantinople.
he was broke, man.
He was broken. He straight up went to the pawn
Need some
shop
cash.
and pawned. Cash now?
Yeah.
Come to the Bank of Venice. We take all holy reliquaries and Arma Christi. No, that's what happened. So when the Latin Crusaders in the Fourth Crusade sacked Constantinople and established the Latin Empire of Constantinople, you had this emperor, Baldwin II, totally broke, totally out of money, podunk emperor, not a legitimate emperor of Constantinople, right? And he pawned the relics of the holy crown of thorns to a bank in Venice, to the bank. And then, you know what? Couldn't come back and reclaim it, so the bank owned it, and he wasn't able to
Jeez.
reclaim his pawn. So then eventually King Louis IX, which St. Louis is named after, he had the cash, and he's just cruising around a pawn shop in Venice. He's like, cool, or maybe they got a guitar or some like weird old
What's
coins or
this?
whatever. What's this? And he's like, oh, sir, you're going to like this. I got this off of Baldwin II. He left it for pawn. Dude never showed up. It's ours now. I got it on sale for you today. So he went and bought it, and then it's been in Paris ever since.
Amazing.
It's
It was there until the
stories, like-
fire too, and then they moved it to the Louvre.
The Louvre, the Brett Favre.
Yeah, I think it's one of
Louvre.
the only holy relics, like in a secular.
Besides the tooth of Mary Magdalene,
Which is in the Met.
Is it really? Wow.
Yeah.
there probably is other relics that are in
There's a
museums
lot,
too.
yeah.
Yeah, there's probably a ton.
And I think it's only there for now.
Yeah.
Until they
Unfortunately.
But I just think, look, there's a lot of really interesting stories like that around all the relics, their provenance, their history, the path that they took from ownership. It's one of the things that makes Catholicism just so interesting. It's just the weird, wild, woolly, and real history of how people react in their relationship to their faith and the items that go along with that. You just can't get that anywhere else.
No, and like there's research being done around these relics too, and there's been investigation in relationship to the Shroud of Turin and the crown of thorns, and thistles only found in Judea around the head on the linen, and then that being one of the plants used in the crown of thorns that's been identified. And it's just fascinating things that have come as a fruit on top of all of the miracles associated with these relics for countless centuries, related to the practices of our faith and venerating these relics. So we just encourage you as you go on pilgrimages.
The holy prepuce was lost for like,
God.
for like 40 years.
No
a parish
more.
priest had
No
took it from
more.
the church and kept it in the sock
He hid
drawer.
it in his
You know
sock
what's
drawer. Yeah,
you know
we
what's really what's weirder than the holy prep? You know what's weirder than that?
It should have been his underwear drawer.
Of your weird tastes for these weird relics. It's weird if people don't pray.
It is.
That's like central to the Catholic faith. And, you need to open your hearts up and you need to open your phones up and download the #1 app in the world.
Stop, Ryan.
the #1 Catholic prayer app, which is HALLOW. And you know what? You won't even have to pawn anything to be able to afford it, because if you go to CatholicTalkShow.com/HALLOW, you can get it for the holy prep use. So if you can go to CatholicTalkShow.com/HALLOW and you can try the #1 Catholic prayer app for free. Don't
Free.
even have to pawn anything.
You know why?
Why?
Because we're the Catholic Talk Show and we love our guys.
We got that kind of clout.
Yeah.
We got that
We're
clout,
like,
dude.
yo, we got to give.
4 years ago, we're like, hey, go to CatholicTalkShow.com and pay full price for an app. We don't have to do that anymore.
Don't have to do it. Yeah. Yeah.
Look at we got the plaque. We got the clout.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Amazing.
All right.
Times are
Ridiculous.
changing.
That's it.
Ridiculous.
Who's that guy?
That's Kev.
Kevin, man.
Remember when I
Oh my gosh.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
That's so
had pizza
awesome,
with Kev. He signed his glamour shot.
We put it up on the wall.
Wait, Hallow.
HALLOW. That's right.
It's
So-
got a bunch of freaking prayers in it. And there's over 1 billion prayers said to date.
Yeah.
And I use it every day. I use Lectio Divina. Driving in the car with my daughter, I'll put it on. Preparing mass, preparing my kids for mass. There's a tool for that. There's groups. I got a group, Mama's Boys. That was your...
What?
No,
don't
what
use
was it? Ave Maria, like
Was that your baseball team?
my football team. How did you even know that?
I don't know.
You just
Hey, we're like this. We think the same.
yeah. So look, there's all kinds of devotions. There's prayer guides. There's sleep aids. There's sacred music. There's podcasts. There's Bible in the Year with Father Mike Schmitz, who is a relic in and of himself. First class. There's like you said, prayer groups. There's novenas. There's devotions, rosary guides. Anything you can think of that helps you in your prayer life, it's right there. So if you want to try it out, go to CatholicTalkShow.com/HALLOW. Try it out right now, 100% free.
So as we continue to celebrate our faith and realize the great tradition and heritage of venerating these relics from the treasuries of the church, we encourage you to find out, what relics do you have in your church? Do you have saints? Do you have relics in your own possession of your own parish communities? And certainly when you go on pilgrimage around the world, to ensure that you go to these places wherever you find yourself on the roads of pilgrimage, to visit these beautiful shrines and these places, especially in Rome. And we want to give you forewarning and notice that Roman pilgrimage for the Jubilee year, it's going to be coming, and we're going to be opening up that trip sometime in the near future. So make sure you're connecting with us and stay subscribed on all of our platforms, CatholicTalkShow.com And big shout out to our patrons. Thank you for your support, and God bless you guys, and we'll see you next week.